mentioned a few different resources on something such as your website or what was the Green Council or what was that one?
U.S. Green Building Council, usgbc.org.
So there seem to be a lot of these. Could you mention maybe the top 5 resources that people could start with to learn about some things we're talking about?
Sure. Online is greenhomeguide.com is a great one. usgbc.org is really much more about the organization, but there are great links to other things. And greenerbuildings.com, greenbuild.com. I mean, there's a ton of them.
Okay, wow, great. So I think we've talked a little bit already about health and building green, but what are some of the major techniques that really would stand out to you as how building green can make for a healthier lifestyle? Partially that just on a day-to-day basis, but also in the long term.
Well, day-to-day, just in your normal exposure with the materials, just what you breathe in and how much fresh air you're getting or not getting. But long term, it really affects everybody. And whether you're building green or not, you're going to be affected. Because if we spew more water into polluted water into our waterways, we're going to run out of water by 2035. Right now, 97% of the water on the planet is in the ocean, and we don't have a good way to make it drinkable. Another 2% is frozen in the polar ice caps, although not for that much longer. And then 1% is what we human beings get to drink, and 70% of it is polluted and getting worse. It's not getting better. So really, that's a very small amount of water that you're looking at to feed the 6.7 billion people on the planet. So suddenly these issues become very important, and as the population keeps booming from 6.7 billion to 9 or 10 billion, we're going to be fighting over water. It's already starting, but not in this country.
So water, when you're building green, how does water get involved in your own home?
You have toilets in your house, right? What are you flushing the toilets with?
What with water?
No, you're flushing them with clean drinking water. Is what you're doing.
Right.
Clean drinking, perfectly good drinking water. You're flushing down the drain that you're, no offense, urinating or defecating into. So it doesn't need to be clean. Why aren't we using the water twice? Why aren't we collecting the soapy water from your sink and your washing machine and your shower, saving that up in some small tank, and then using that to flush the toilet? Why aren't we collecting the water off the roof that falls instead of just letting it fall away? Collecting the rainwater off the roof and storing that up and using that for irrigation and then for the back of the toilet. These are all easy things that we can do. It doesn't take a lot of complicated systems to do them. And the trouble is that we have these odd building codes that actually are dated back to the 1700s in some cases that say things like you're not allowed to collect your rainwater and use it for something. It's illegal, like it does in Texas. Or you're not allowed to take soapy water from the sink and flush it down the toilet as it does here in California. So we have these antiquated laws that we're now realizing they weren't intended to be against green building, but they are, and we're now having to figure out ways to change them. And we're changing them one by one. We're slowly changing them right here in San Francisco with the mayor's support, thankfully, and he's been great about it. But eventually we'll change them statewide and then nationwide. And it's kind of funny. But look at energy. Think of all the potential energy that falls upon the earth from the sun. 5,000 times the amount of energy we need every day. And we just ignore it. Who needs it? It's better to suck oil out of the ground from countries that, don't like us very much and pay a hefty sum and then hold people hostage at the price. We're kind of stuck. We're truly addicts. And like most addicts, we're stuck and we don't know how to kind of get off one thing and get onto something that's healthier.
So with things that can, directly pertain to people's health, in the home, you mentioned earlier some things like, like the paint on the walls and the, covering on your flooring if you have hardwood or the vinyl if you have carpet. What are some other surfaces like that would be improved if someone's building green?
The main two issues right now in my mind are formaldehyde, which is in cabinetry and particle board.
And that's still being built? Because I'd heard about that years ago, but I thought,
oh yeah,
oh, wow, that's amazing.
Here in the state of California, we've effectively banned it. Not totally, but we have. The state of California just announced a few months ago that they now estimate 1 in 10,000 Californians will develop cancer from exposure to formaldehyde. So essentially, we've banned it. We haven't banned it as much as we could, but we have. And I'd love to see that nationwide. If you really think about the history of of toxic materials. Our history is not very good. Take lead paint. Everybody's heard of lead paint and knows that, little flakes come off and the dust comes off and kids eat it and creates developmental issues. Well, we first knew about the issues of lead paint back in the 1930s. It wasn't until 1979 that we officially banned it. Decades after Europe and after we knew that there were these problems. Take asbestos. I remember in the 70s my school being shut down for a week so they could clean the asbestos out of it. And even though all 5 asbestos companies had essentially gone out of business and the lawsuits were building, it wasn't until 1989 that we officially banned it. Some 20 years after the first real lawsuits came about, and some, really think about it, some 50 years since the first reports about its danger. And even though asbestos was banned in 1989, we still get about 3,000 people dying every year from asbestosis and mesothelioma. So, simply banning it doesn't solve the problem either. In fact, if we ban it now, we're going to have to live with its legacy for decades to come.
Right, there's so much out there still.
So the real sad part is all the obstruction that comes up when we try to ban something, when we have data and reports saying, look, this is bad, we need to do something, and the millions that the companies with vested interests spend to stop that from happening.
So those examples, such as asbestos, are there any, these materials that you think are out there now that within a number of years will be banned in the same way again, such as lead paint? Are there
vinyl and formaldehyde they should be banned now, but they're going to have to be banned.
So those are pretty big ones then.
Those are big and they're very prevalent too. It's also kind of strange when you see paint companies that sell, here's our normal paint, aka our toxic paint that smells. Oh, and by the way, we're green. We're a green company because we offer a low VOC. It's less toxic. Not a zero VOC, just low. So this can kill you or this can kill you slower. Which do you choose? Look how green we are. And they're patting themselves on the back. And from my perspective, it just looks ridiculous. I mean, it's laughable, especially when you have real green companies, companies like Safecoat or YOLO Color House that are true green, dedicated to it, and only sell zero VOC paints that are healthy for you. It makes the others look ridiculous.
If one of these paint companies was to start replacing all of their paints with zero VOC paints, would it be that much more expensive for them over time to do that, or
no? Well, it depends on the company and how they're tooled, but conceivably, no. The chemistry's been around for a long enough time. It's just a matter of them doing it. But don't forget about the side effect that would happen. If you had a big company that said, you know what, we can't in good conscience sell toxic paints anymore. Starting today, we're switching all of our paints over to zero VOCs. It would lower the cost for everybody. It would send ripples through the painting industry, which is a pretty tight industry, right? There's only a handful of companies that control that market. And force all of them to do the same. And we've seen this before. We saw it in California. In the 1970s when California said that every toilet has to be a low-flow toilet. Every shower, in 1992 when the national government said every shower head has to be a low-flow shower head. Companies grumbled and complained and fought it and argued. But you know what happened? All the manufacturers started producing it and the price plummeted. And if we start building the right things and doing them the right way, it'll cause everybody to lower their prices and everybody benefits.